Nothing gets the pulse rating racing quite like the trade bell, at least Sam Edmonds, for effective freight solutions. Get started with us today. Hello to you, Sam.
Good morning to you, Gerard.
So first official instalment of the trade bell, which we will ring at 10:40 each Tuesday and Wednesday with you. For those who haven't played along before, and actually everyone's played along before because the first one that came through was Tom Green to Richmond trade update, please, Sammy, is you get to send through either questions, but we like imagination, and we're happy to field what you're hearing. And Sam's got a few categories. The safety category of that's the stuff of fantasy. The default category is I haven't heard that, or he'll give you the, yep, that's kicking around, or no, I can tell you that's not happening. That's sort of where we play. 0433 98 11 16. But we have concrete material to start with because Isaac Rankine is out of the Suns.
Suns' first fears realised, Gerard, they have come to fruition. So he has informed the Gold Coast Suns, who are doing their exit meetings at the moment, that he will be exploring a trade. Craig Cameron, their General Manager, Player Talent and Strategy up at Gold Coast, has released a statement which says, "We've created a football club where our players and staff are committed to success, so we're disappointed with his decision. We've provided an environment and support network around Isaac since he was drafted to help him play his best football, and it's disappointing that journey won't continue." So Isaac Rankine going to the Adelaide Crows. That's where he wants to play because the offer, and the Suns have been really confident keeping him, Gerard, but this late raid they simply cannot compete with. It's 5 years at around $4 million a season for the mercurial forward. So now the two clubs will work on a trade. Adelaide has pick 5 as things stand, and that'll get thrashed out during the trade period.
Yeah, so 5's the starting point, isn't it, really? If you're prepared to offer $800,000 a year for a high draft pick who's just starting to
he showed
become that player.
Yeah, he showed plenty.
Yeah, I'm so curious about this one. It obviously flipped dramatically on the Suns late in the season from a point where they were sure they had a deal to suddenly they realised they didn't, and this day was coming.
The 3 players that they took in that draft year, King, Lukosius and Rankine, they got King done first. That was the big one. Then they got Lukosius done, and then they were always confident Rankine would follow suit once they sat down to do it. He bought a house up there on the Gold Coast. He was settled there. As you say, he was just starting to play some really good football, everything that they thought he would become. And then that late raid has come from Adelaide, where his family is. Of course, he's really close with his family, so that's where he wants to play his football as well. Speaking of Adelaide and concrete developments, Carl Amon is about to leave Adelaide, of the Port variety, so he'll exercise his free agency rights. He's bound for Hawthorn, Gerard, so no surprises there that he has told Port Adelaide upon his exit meetings that he wishes to leave as well.
So they knew in the middle of the year, and they've handled it, it sounds like, really well behind closed doors, probably wishing that the industry was mature enough where you could say it. But I think you would say that this has been faultlessly handled through the back end of the season.
And this is the way it should be, shouldn't it? I wish we had more of this. I wish it went further and the player could simply state, I'm going to give my all for my club right now. But the reality is I'm going to be going elsewhere next year. If you don't nominate the club, that will be. So as things stand now that you ring the bell on us, Gerard, I think we're going to have around, at this point, 20 players locked and loaded to be traded. Now, speaking to a few managers this morning, that number could easily balloon beyond 30 in the coming week or so. It's a bit of a situation with a lot of them where if the price is right, we're moving. So it's going to be a very, very busy trade period. And that's just the trades without getting into the free agency that we mentioned with Carl Amon and the like. So there's a bit happening.
It's an intense contrast to last year where for a long way out, it was going to be a fizzer. It feels like this is the year that we sort of crash through a few thresholds, and I suspect you never go back once you have a trade period like this.
No, well, we mentioned, and there was COVID at play with last year, that the tumbleweeds were going to roll through. Well, this year the tumbleweeds, they've rolled through and gone. Now it's the shootout at the OK Corral for a lot of guys, Gerard. So it's on. Speaking of things that have been in train for a long time, Dan McStay will join Collingwood. Now, he was gone in April. I mean, this has its origins in a low first-up contract offer from the Lions. Now, that opened the door on a move, and as we see from time to time, that opens a window that rival clubs just step through. So Brisbane did up their offer in June, but by then it was too late. So McStay had his head around a move home to Melbourne, where he's got his family, of course. Collingwood made an offer that he liked, all things pointing to him going to the Pies, unless there's a sudden and dramatic about-face there. Bobby Hill's likely to be there with him as well. Tim Taranto's on the radar at Collingwood as he is at Richmond. So just on Taranto, he's set to make a decision on his future by the end of the week. GWS doing their exit interviews at the moment. Adam Kingsley to be unveiled today. Now, he will meet Adam Kingsley. He was determined to meet whoever the new coach was going to be out of respect, Tim Taranto. And I think if we're talking about Taranto, Hopper, Hill, Bruin, they've really dug in GWS on keeping Taranto. They've had a 2-year offer and a 4-year contract offer on the table for him since mid-year.
Right.
So I think he's the one that GWS want to keep. Now, whether he reciprocates that enthusiasm remains to be seen. But at the Pies, Ollie Henry has a decision to make as well, just while we're on the subject of Collingwood. Club and management a reasonable way apart on the financial element to this deal to stay at Collingwood, who have a lot of moving pieces. So Henry has a bit to consider too, given, McStay's coming in, perhaps Bobby Hill into that front 50 as well. So where does he play? He's fallen out of favour late this season. The likes of Ash Johnson have just come from nowhere. So that's something that Ollie Henry needs to weigh up, as well as, we talk about Brodie Grundy in a moment. A lot of players coming in at Collingwood, a lot of players going out. I mentioned Jacob Hopper, targeted a long way out by Geelong. I think the Cats offer maybe a first rounder for him, and it's done. So Hopper's 26 in February. He does have a year to run on that contract, but I think he's the one that the Cats are absolutely after. Will the Cats ever bottom out again, Gerard, do you think? Will the Cats ever be ordinary again? They are unbelievable the way they do it. And the royal we, got stuck into them for being a retirement home. That has all been forgotten, hasn't it? Because he's 30, then you 27, 28. If you have a good medical department and a good high-performance team, we see it from players across the competition all the moment that are playing great football well into their careers. Taylor Walker, Travis Boak, the list goes on, and they do it so well at Geelong.
If they were to win it, it'll have a ripple effect right across the competition, I suspect. So there's a lot of questions here. Have you got more you want to table before
There's plenty to get through, but why not fire a few questions?
Well, I have to start because the flurry came for Tom Green at the start. So this is perennial. From the day we first rang the trade bell, we started to get questions about Tom Green to Richmond, and that was years ago.
This is a gross oversight from me.
Maybe even before he even got drafted.
Would you
we
believe
were taking these questions.
It should have been the first call I made was to be prepared for the Tom Green text, and I haven't done. The basket's empty on Tom Green.
Good fun. Griffin Logue, there's 3 groups of supporters who have so far sent through there. Is Griffin Logue coming too?
That's such a good question that is really hard to answer at the moment. Now, he'd wanted a new contract from Fremantle from a long way out that wasn't forthcoming. So I think in an ideal world, he would like to stay at Fremantle. But going back to earlier on this year, that just hadn't been reciprocated by Fremantle, who we'll get to Luke Jackson in a moment. They've put their eggs into the Luke Jackson basket. Now, that has led to a ripple effect on contracts either not being offered or being offered at a level that, players and their management weren't happy with. So that fits into Griffin Logue's basket. That fits into Blake Acres. Bailey Banfield hasn't been able to get a deal there. Pearce's deal was said to be unders as well. So he is in the, the dominoes that are going to fall from Luke Jackson. I can't give you an answer as to where Griffin Logue will go, if anywhere at the moment. His future's up in the air.
Right, so first creative mind at play. It's a bit like multis. There's 2-leggers are not enough on the trade bell.
Yep.
So we've got Grundy to Melbourne, Jackson to Fremantle, Sean Darcy to Collingwood.
Yeah. So I think Luke Jackson, now actually just on Luke Jackson, West Coast believe they're still in the hunt for Luke. So we cannot rule out the Eagles yet. Now he was seen to be, to Fremantle as a front runner there. That might still be the case, but the Eagles maintain they're still in the race for the WA-born ruckman. So Luke Jackson's gone. Let's just state that as fact. That has led to Brodie Grundy meeting a number of clubs, one of them Melbourne. He's got 5 years to run on that contract worth $5 million as well. And then there's Darcy. So if Luke Jackson does come in, but Sean Darcy has a contract as well. So we all struggle to think how he fits Luke Jackson at Fremantle, don't we? And whether, as you so eloquently put, if you are a rival club, you're knocking on Sean Darcy's door to see if you can get it at. That could be a ruck merry-go-round for the ages.
It would be. AG is text. Josh Dunkley must be leaving if he's still not signed.
Well, talks are taking place at the moment. It's not like there's silence there or they've hit a stalemate. There's back and forward between Josh Dunkley's management and the Western Bulldogs. So the Dogs are relatively confident. It has been painfully slow from their point of view. They would like to have had it done and dusted well and truly by now. I still think if you're a betting person without knowing for sure, you say that he stays, and that's only because there's a bit of to and fro at the moment in terms of working out that deal and what it looks like at the Whitten Oval.
Is Darcy Parish gettable, is from one correspondent.
Well, I haven't heard that. No. I'm putting that in the haven't heard it basket.
Jack Gunston to the Lions, question mark.
Yeah, look, I made a call on Jack Gunston today. Now, he's someone who needs to make a call on what he wants to do. He's a free agent, of course, at Hawthorn. Brisbane, it's a statement of fact. They have made contact. They're looking to replace Dan McStay, who, as we said earlier, they've known he's going for a long time out. But at this stage, that inquiry from Brisbane just hasn't progressed beyond that. So this will become clear in the next week or two. Only Jack Gunston knows whether he wants to stay put at Hawthorn or whether he'll exercise his free agency rights and maybe head up to Brisbane. But they are definitely interested.
What else have you got that you want to put on the table today?
Yeah, where should we go? I think North Melbourne. Alistair Clarkson's arrival and what happens with Cam Zurhaar is going to be interesting to see from here. Now, he's been holding off on re-signing beyond this year for months. North presented a contract in June. In the meantime, a lot of clubs have expressed an interest, Essendon one of those. So he's got a decision to make. You would think this coaching appointment would have him stay, but he's in an interesting stage of his career where he's in his mid-20s, fifth coach in 6 years, won 35% of games as a forward who's relying on what happens up the field. So only he knows in his head whether he's being turned by rival approaches or what sort of upside he sees at Arden Street to have some success in the future. You'd think Alistair Clarkson's arrival means he stays. Liam Shields is one of those players who's taken a call from Clarko as well. So out of contract, 31, spent a fair chunk of the year in the VFL. Liam Shields was dropped for that last round at the weekend. I think that move to Arden Street is absolutely on, and it makes sense too. You get him for nothing. He can start spreading the Clarko gospel at North Melbourne. Jack Gunston, we mentioned. Time will tell whether we see a full 180-degree attitude change from Todd Goldstein as well. So Goldstein was basically counting down the weeks until the end of the season at one point to request a trade. So he's 34. He's an unrestricted free agent. But this arrival, coaching arrival, might be enough to convince him to stick around, be a one-club player, play his 300th, which I think they'd all like to see at North Melbourne. Bradley Hill has been a regular topic of conversation at St Kilda for several weeks now. At leadership meetings, at list management meetings, the feeling, Gerard, among some sections of that playing group is that they have, in an on-field sense, lost a bit of trust and faith in Bradley Hill. And that feeling might now be mutual as well from the player. So 3 years to go on a deal worth around $900,000 a season. If it is a club like North Melbourne, maybe it's a trade that North don't offer full tote for in terms of picks going back the other way because they pick up that hefty wage bill. So there's options there when it comes to these big contracts and who pays what. So I think that's a watch this space as well when it comes to Bradley Hill and what he might want to do and the Alistair Clarkson effect, if you like, with players that are on the books there at North Melbourne and players who might soon be on the books. Did we talk Willie Rioli? I don't think we did. So out of contract at West Coast, future well and truly up in the air at the moment. Now, he's got an offer from the Eagles. Financially, that offer is light, but this is a decision that goes well beyond the boundary line. Now, Willie, I think it's fair to say, likes life at West Coast. He would be keen to stay, but he's got some significant family logistics to work through, and what that looks like will shape where he plays next year. He's got a lot of extended family in Melbourne, a city that offers his immediate family more support than in Perth. It just depends on what Willie wants to do. So his exit meeting is actually taking place at West Coast today.
And it sounds like Shannon Hearn is going to sign for another year at West Coast.
That's correct. Yeah, 1 year contract extension for the veteran at West Coast. So that'll be announced in the foreseeable future. We're told from the West, Gerard. So that's a good one for the Eagles.
Where's Cam? Cam's gone ding, ding, ding. Franklin to Lions, McStay to Pies, Grundy to Melbourne, Jackson to Freo, Lobb to Sydney, which is a little twist on a familiar riff.
Absolutely. And what was the first leg there? The first leg was
Franklin
one
to the Lions.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's going to happen. I mean, obviously the Lions have asked the question. I just still can't, in my heart of hearts, see Franklin leaving Sydney. But Lobb is absolutely on. Now, Lobb has been wanting to leave Fremantle for some time, so that's one to watch, regardless of where it goes.